it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be creating a kind of off the edge look for the card, and no dies are needed for this. If you just have a really gorgeous little stamp set that you want to use, this is going to work perfectly. Now, I'm actually going to use a couple of different stamp sets today. If you have a stamp set where just one stamp is perfect, then that would be ideal. However, I didn't, and I went through my stash, and I have this one here, which is the Mini Scented Blooms. And then in my left hand, I have the Peony Blooms stamp set. This is an older one, but I have used this in a lot of videos, and it is still available. I think I will put links to everything down in the description box below in case you are interested in checking them out. But honestly, go through your stash, and I'm sure that you will have, if you don't have one stamp, then you will have several that you can put together like I'm going to today from different stamp sets, and that will work well too. I have used my anti-static powder pouch to pop some powder on there because I am going to heat emboss these, and then I am going to stamp down the flower first. I am going to be stamping this in the VersaFine Onyx black ink, and this is very similar to the Versa Clear inks. It's kind of the same family. These are pigment inks, and they are great if you want to do heat embossing and not have to use the VersaMark or a sticky embossing ink as well. Pigment inks tend to sit on top of the paper, so that gives you that little bit extra to time where you are able to sprinkle over some embossing powder, and it will stick to it nicely, so you are able to heat emboss it and melt that powder. Now here I'm going to be using some of the Gina masking paper, and I will create a mask for this flower. Now recently what I have been doing to stop any smudging or anything like that getting in the way on my projects, I have also been heat embossing my masks. Now I know that this is definitely an extra step, but I find depending on which kind of techniques I'm using the masks with, whether it be inking or ink blending or watercoloring, I have found that this has saved me a fair few times, because when I create a mask, I like to use the Gina masking paper because it is such good quality and it really does hold up, and that means that I can pop it back in the packet with the stamp and use it over and over again, which to me is good value for money if I'm able to get lots of uses out of it. So I'm going to heat emboss on the masking paper as well. Then I'm going to cut this one out, and the main important thing is when you take the backing paper, the release paper off the back of this, don't throw it away, because that's what I'm going to put back on when I put it back in with the stamp set. So I have fussy cut out this image, and just inside, like right in the middle of the black lines, and then I will pop it down on top of the flower, and this is where I'm going to pop in my leaves. Now, if you have a stamp that is just kind of the flowers and the leaves and it's perfect for this technique, then you will obviously be able to skip all of the masking step in all of this because you won't have to do any masking, but I obviously needed to use masking because I am joining two different stamp sets together. Now, I wanted the leaves to kind of look different, so I'm actually just going to mask off a few of the bottom ones, and there will be the top three leaves only. I actually don't do a very good job of inking this up, and I must have rocked my acrylic block a little too much or something, because I did get a little bit of an ink stain, an ink blotch right where I didn't want it to be. I can see the ink on the tip of the other leaf now, which I must not have masked very well. So I will show you how we will fix that in the end. There is always little mistakes in card making. Look, I can see that little bit of ink staring right back at me, but as I said, we'll show you how to fix it, and if we kind of started over every time there was a little mistake in my card making, I would never ever complete a card. So more often than not, I just have to adapt my card in some way or another to incorporate the little mistakes that I make. So I'm going to pull off this flower mask, and you can see it looks like the leaves are kind of nicely sitting behind that flower. And then from here, I am going to pop the release paper back on my mask because I can pop it back in with my stamp set. Now, as I say in most of my videos, when it comes to colouring, you should honestly do what you feel most comfortable doing and you enjoy doing, but for today I'm going to use some spiced marmalade, wild honey, mustard seed and squeezed lemonade. That kind of goes from a really light yellow into a darker orange. I think I end up only using a couple of these colours. But as I said, just use whichever colouring method works well for you. And this is part of the reason why I heat emboss the image, because it creates a little border or a little well for your colour to kind of stay inside of when you are watercolouring, and it kind of has all that fluid movement with your watercolours, and it stops it leaking into where the greens should be for the leaves and things. So that is another little tip, that if you're doing some watercolouring and you want it to stay, or you want to kind of work in the leaf next door without muddying the colours and without moving it on, then you can definitely heat emboss it to create those little walls, and that works really, really well. It means that you don't have to wait for everything to dry before you move on to the space right next door to where you've just coloured. So I am just using a water brush, and again, there is no rhyme or reason or tips or techniques that I can give you to colouring. I've said in many a video that it is not my forte. I just do my best, and that pretty much gets me through. I'm adding a little bit of darker ink where those shadows would be, where the leaves are kind of overturned over, and then I started darker in the middle, and then it gradually went out lighter into the yellows, and then using a really light yellow, that Squeeze Lemonade, for the centre. Now, when I was popping down these inks onto my acrylic block, for whatever reason, I really went to town and put down so much ink, and it is such a shame to waste it. So I'm going to take another piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to wet it with a little bit of water and make sure that my finger kind of spreads around so my whole page is pretty much damp at least, and then take my acrylic block and move it around. Now, I'm quite excited here because this was a fun result from this little extra wipe up piece of paper, and I may even do a whole nother project with this piece. I'm not sure if I'm going to film it. I have, at the moment, this is being filmed on a Friday, and yesterday I did just pop up a wee thing saying that I would be taking a little break from card making and posting the videos on YouTube for a week or so. It is school holidays here, and I'm really excited to have both my kids home and just really spend some nice time with them. So I am going to take a little break. However, I won't be taking a break in real life. I will still be doing all of the filming and editing and voiceovers and things, but it will allow me to get ahead a little bit. I usually like to have some videos lined up ready to go, and the actual filming of the videos that you guys see is usually anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks before it gets to you, is when I have actually filmed the video, and then there's kind of a little process that I go through with the editing and voiceovers and all of those little things. So yeah, it is usually a little gap, and I like to have some videos lined up ready to go, and that just takes the pressure off me in case something happens, or I don't have the time that I thought I might have, or something takes over, life takes over like it tends to, and that way I just don't feel any pressure. I know that I have some videos lined up ready to go. So this little break that I am taking, although you guys won't see videos for a week, and I really do apologize, I was completely overwhelmed with the support that you have shown me through Facebook comments and comments on the community tabs and YouTube. But this will be my welcome back video, so I hope that you are enjoying it. Now I am going to take a ruler here and just kind of through my image, I want to partially cut out some of the image, but I'm going to just draw a couple of straight lines. Now I am just guesstimating here. I'm not really one of those people who loves measuring precisely or anything, so I'm just taking that line that I drew and then making a straight across line to see where I should start the other side, and then just kind of drawing one line down in the same direction. Now I know this seems a little bit complicated, but trust me, it's not, and in a minute you'll see exactly what I am talking about. So you can kind of see those little pencil marks there that I have drawn, and I am going to take a this ruler here is the Tim Holtz design ruler, and it has a metal edge to it. So it's really important to have the metal edge when you are cutting with a craft knife or something, so that you don't accidentally slice into the ruler. So I am using a craft knife and that metal edge of the ruler to just trace right along that line that I just drew with the pencil. But honestly, you could probably do this with scissors just as easy. But for me, it did feel nice to have lots of control over where it ended. And I'm doing it right up against the image. So I chose not to leave a little white border. And then the rest of this, I am going to fussy cut off. So again, if you felt more comfortable, you could definitely leave a little white border here. But I chose to go right up against the flower. I think that gives a really good lot of impact when it kind of cuts off nicely there. And then just to finish it off, because I did the black heat embossing, I'm coming in with that black brush marker and just going around the outside. And this will make all of your fussy cutting look a lot better than it actually is, because I need that help. So you can see that this lines up nicely with my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. Here is some coloured cardstock. This is kind of the reach of my coloured cardstock these days. I tend not to have too much on hand at all. And I was going to go a really nice pale yellow, but I decided to go nice and bright, and I'm really glad that I did. Now you could definitely cut this down so as not to use the whole piece here. This paper pad is actually 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so I don't have to cut them down because this is the most common size of card that I make. So I do really like the paper pad for that reason. They have a whole range of warms and cools and all those sorts of things. And then I'm using this Sentiments with Love stamp from BoBunny. I'm using the You're Amazing stamp up the top there, but this could be, again, for any occasion, and you could have any little element there that you fussy cut out. It doesn't have to be a flower. It could be butterflies. It could be a little character animal. It could be anything. So you could have anything there to match any occasion that you need this card for. And I am going to line this up in my Mini Misty or a stamping platform, because at this point I have put a little too much time into the card. I do not want to ruin it at this point. Then I'm using the same VersaFine Onyx black ink to stamp out my sentiment. This is my go-to ink for stamping sentiments. It's a really fine detail, amazing pigment ink. It's very crisp and dark ink, which I love. So I would recommend that one if you're looking for an ink to stamp out sentiments and fine details and all of those things. It's very versatile. I did decide to pop up the top panel here, so I'm using a little bit of foam tape. If you didn't have foam tape, then you can use foam squares or dots, or you can just use fun foam from like a cheap and cheerful $2 shop or something, and pop that behind it. Or also it is really common to layer up pieces of cardstock. That would work too. Now I know this seems counterintuitive to add some liquid adhesive to the back of already adhesive foam tape, but when I am putting on a project that really needs to be nice and square like this, I like having the control and the wiggle movement of the liquid glue. So I just run my finger over it once I've put a little bit of glue on the back, and that means that there's kind of no sticky left, but there's just the nice movement, and you can see I wiggle it around here until I have it perfectly where I want it to go. I'm going to use some black Nouveau drops. I have covered up that little ink splotch right at the top there that we accidentally got when I was stamping the leaves out at the beginning. And I'm just popping a couple of little dots here, there, and just around the bottom. You could use some sequins, you could use enamel dots, you can use Nouveau drops, you can use color drops. Anything that you have is going to work really well there. And then add a little bit of light clear glitter just to make that flower shine a little bit more, which is a little bit hard to catch for this card. But that is it. Thank you so much for having me back. I am back on board, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye!